Okay, we're live.
Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome everyone to this special meeting of the Mahone Bay Town Council. We have a relatively short agenda today. One piece will be discussed with the public, and then we will be seeking to go in camera for the discussion of the second item in accordance with MGA 22-2A concerning contract negotiations. But before we do any of that, we'll begin by acknowledging that we are gathered today in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral, present, and future territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Today, we gather with the intent followed by the Living Peace and Friendship Treaties with respect, cooperation, and coexistence. We'll call the meeting to order. And Council, you have an agenda which was emailed to you. Entertain a motion to approve or amend the agenda as presented. What is your wish? Councillor Now?
Move to approve as presented.
Thank you. Councillor Carver seconds the motion. On the question, all in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. We'll go to the second item after the approval of the agenda, which is concerning the temporary borrowing resolution, the renewal of the resolution. This is a follow-on to a discussion from our last council meeting. There is documentation which has been sent out by the CAO. Mr. Hyde, would you like to tell us about it?
Well, just since I wasn't at council's last meeting and this was deferred from that meeting, you all have had a couple of emails from me on the subject, but just to clarify, we had established this temporary borrowing resolution in the early days of planning the solar project. It is necessary to have a temporary borrowing resolution for a couple of reasons. One is that it authorizes us to go to our local bank, Bank of Montreal here in Mahone Bay, and set up a borrowing facility to be used in the short term as the project is going on. And then the other is that it clears the way for us to participate in a MFC, a Municipal Finance Corporation debenture issue for long-term debt. This project has only just started to move into a phase where significant costs are being incurred. I know it was reported the meeting before last that solar panels have arrived and are in storage in Metro, and we will be getting an invoice for that shortly. The project certainly will go on throughout another year, and most likely, based on the planned completion in the fall of 2023, will actually require another renewal of this TBR at this time next year. But in the meantime, we want to keep it current to avoid any issues with accessing the revolving credit facility with the Bank of Montreal, and to avoid having to go back through a new approval process with the minister. So that's the basic spiel of it all. If anyone has questions, I think I've addressed some by email, but I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Hyde. Councillor Feeney.
Mayor, I think that there was some confusion at the last council meeting, specifically around the amount, the $2.7 million. And I think as the CAO mentioned, the math behind that is the 27% with a 25% grossed up contingency. And I think that slipped our minds as that was articulated through the memo from Mr. Wenzel some time ago. But I think that's the answer to the question is not that the town's budget estimates haven't gone up by $700,000. It's just that, as it was explained, I think in the memo, that the contingencies just based on best practices. So it's standard protocol for the full amount, the 2.1 million plus the contingency. So I think, hearing that, I was satisfied that we had the answer to the question, and therefore I'd move that we approve the temporary borrowing resolution in the amount of $2.7 million.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Wilson seconds. Mr. Hyde on the question.
Just quickly, just to add to Joe's point about the 25% contingency, and that is not just advised by area as a contingency towards the final project costs. So we've been doing very well at keeping those within our expectations to date, but it's also a contingency during the actual construction phase of the project, because there will be times when the federal reimbursement will lag behind our payment of invoices. So we may be in situations where we actually need to draw on more than our eventual expected cost just to cover it while we get reimbursed for those costs from the federal party. So just a further, it's not like we're exceedingly uncertain about the eventual cost of the project. It's actually come in very much, especially in COVID times. We're pleased to see in line with original expectations, but there just will be those periods throughout the construction phase where we may be waiting on some federal funding.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, so just to reiterate, I think going forward, it would be very helpful if, and I know those documents, we'd seen them before, that when something like this comes to the table again, that the same documents are shared so that this just gives more clarity in terms of how we're making decisions.
No, that's my mistake, and I'll certainly, it's a good experience to remember when we again probably do this whole thing again next winter.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any other comments or questions on the motion? Hearing none. On the motion, all in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. That ends item number 2. We would entertain a motion to go in camera, please. Councillor Burdick moves, Councillor Wilson seconds. All in favor?